The wind howled across the barren plains of Ziara's homeland, carrying with it the dust and ash of a world that had known nothing but war. Once a thriving planet, now it lay in ruins, its cities reduced to rubble, and its people broken by years of conflict. Ziara stood at the edge of a decimated village, the empty streets eerily silent, save for the occasional crack of distant explosions. Her heart ached with the weight of the loss of her home, her people, and most painfully, her husband. Her partner Talak had been a warrior, strong and fearless. He had fought bravely in the war, but the battle had taken him from her. Ziara had buried him beneath the scorched earth, unable to find the strength to mourn properly. The grief gnawed at her insides, a constant reminder of the family she had lost. Now, she was alone. Ziara cradled her infant daughter, Talia, in her arms. The small, delicate form of her child stirred faintly, but it wasn't enough. Talia's eyes were wide and empty, her little body too weak from hunger. Ziara had been doing her best to care for her daughter, but it was becoming impossible. She had tried everything. She had searched the remnants of their old home for food, and she had even scavenged for supplies in the surrounding villages, but nothing had been enough. The enemy forces that had ravaged her world had also destroyed the vital resources needed for survival. Water was scarce. Food was even rarer. The devastation was all-encompassing. Yet, that wasn't the worst of it. Her milk had gone dry. Ziara's body, once able to nourish her child without question, now betrayed her. She had no idea why it had happened, but for the past 2 weeks, her milk had slowly dried up, leaving her unable to feed Talia. Desperation clawed at her every day as she searched for a solution. Every time Talia cried from hunger, Ziara felt like a failure. "Please, Talia, please! I don't know what to do anymore," Ziara whispered, her voice breaking. She had tried everything: ancient rituals, herbal concoctions, even pleas to the planet's spiritual guides. Nothing worked. Her milk remained gone, and her child continued to weaken. It was a hopeless situation. Ziara had always been a strong woman, strong in her belief, in her culture, and in her love for her family. But now she was empty. Her strength had been drained along with her milk. She could feel herself slipping away, her body weakening as the days passed. The cold was settling in as night began to fall. Ziara wrapped herself and Talia in the tattered remnants of a blanket she had found. The stars overhead glimmered coldly. In the vast sky, a harsh reminder of how alone they were. There was no comfort here, only the oppressive weight of survival. As the hours dragged on, Ziara grew more and more desperate. Talia's cries were quiet now, barely audible as the child's. Strength ebbed away. Ziara knew she couldn't keep this up for much longer. She needed help. But where could she turn? The alliance between her people and the neighboring species had broken down long ago. The galaxy had turned a blind eye to the suffering of her world. The situation seemed hopeless. But then a thought flickered in the back of her mind. The humans, she had heard whispers about them. Stories of their strange abilities, their compassion, and their willingness to help even the most distant of allies. Some had called them saviors, others had seen them as a threat. But Ziara wasn't sure what to believe. She only knew that if anyone could help her, it would be them. She had to take the risk. Without a second thought, Ziara stood, clutching Talia to her chest. The weight of her child felt heavy, but she knew it was nothing compared to the weight of responsibility she felt. She had to keep going. The journey was long and exhausting, but Ziara pressed on, determined to find the humans. She moved through the ruins of her world, past the broken buildings and the remains of her people's once great civilization. As she walked, her mind raced with fear and hope. What if the humans didn't help her? What if they saw her as nothing more than another victim of a pointless war? But what other choice did she have? She was fighting for her daughter's life, and she would do whatever it took to save her. The planet's atmosphere, once a bright blue, was now choked with smoke and debris. The air was thick with the remnants of burning cities, and the ground beneath her feet trembled occasionally as distant blasts echoed in the distance. But Ziara had learned to ignore the noise, focusing only on the faint hope that the humans might be able to help. As she reached the edge of the city, she spotted a ship in the distance, one that didn't belong to her people. The sleek, metallic shape gleamed under the dim light of the dying sun. It was a human ship. Ziara's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected to find them so quickly, and the reality of the situation hit her. She had to approach them. There was no turning back now. With shaking hands, she began to walk toward the ship, her steps slow but purposeful. She had made it this far. There was no going back now. Ziara's hope and desperation collided, driving her forward. The ship's hatch opened with a hiss, and from within, a figure stepped out. A human soldier. Ziara's breath caught in her throat as she saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, and confident. His dark eyes locked onto hers as if he had been waiting for her all along. "Can I help you?" His voice was calm, with an underlying sense of authority. Ziara took a deep breath. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I need help. My daughter, she's dying. I can't feed her. I don't know what to do." The soldier's eyes softened as he looked at the tiny, weak infant in her arms. Without a word, he stepped forward, reaching out with a hand. "Come with me," he said. Ziara's heart raced as the human soldier stepped closer, his eyes fixed on her with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Her fingers tightened around Talia, who was still too weak to make any sound, her tiny body feeling like dead weight in Ziara's arms. She had never imagined she would be standing before a human, pleading for help. But here she was, in the ruins of her broken world, with only a small flicker of hope to guide her. The soldier's calm demeanor seemed out of place amidst the destruction of her home planet. Everything around them screamed of war, rubble, smoke, and the echoes of battle. But this man, this human, was different. His uniform was clean, his posture strong, as though he had come from another world altogether. "Please," Ziara whispered. Again, her voice hoarse. "My baby. She's starving. I have no way to feed her." The soldier knelt down slowly, his movements deliberate and careful, as though he sensed the delicate nature of the moment. Ziara tried to steady her breathing, her eyes flicking to his face, searching for any sign that he understood the gravity of her situation. "Let me see her," the soldier said softly. Ziara hesitated for a moment, her instincts telling her to protect Talia from any potential danger. But the look in his eyes was gentle, filled with the sort of compassion she hadn't seen since Talak's death. With a slow, trembling hand, she adjusted her grip on her daughter and gently offered Talia to the soldier. He looked down at the frail baby, his face softening even further. "She's barely breathing," he murmured. "You've done everything you can, haven't you?" Ziara nodded, the tears welling up in her eyes once again. "I don't know what happened. I woke up one day and I couldn't feed her anymore. My milk is gone, and I can't find any way to bring it back. She's fading." The soldier's face hardened slightly, his jaw tightening. "I understand. We've seen this kind of thing before. We'll do everything we can to help her." Ziara swallowed hard, her hope swelling for the first time in days. You can help her?" The soldier nodded, his voice steady. "We have medical technology that can help. It's experimental, but it has worked for others in similar situations." Ziara's gaze flickered to the ship behind him, a massive vessel that had landed silently in the distance. It was sleek and strange, unlike anything she had ever seen. Its design was far more advanced than anything her people had ever built. It was hard to believe that something so magnificent had come to her planet in its time of need. But the soldier's words filled her with a new kind of hope. "We'll get her on board and run some tests. It's a long shot, but it's the best we've got," he continued. "There's no harm in trying." Ziara nodded, too exhausted to speak. Her legs were shaky, her body worn down from days of travel and worry. She had come so far, and now it seemed like the first real chance of salvation was within her reach. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. The soldier helped her carefully into the ship, his touch gentle but firm. The inside of the ship was surprisingly warm, and the air smelled clean and fresh, unlike the staleness of her home planet. Ziara had no idea where they were going or what would happen once they reached the human medical facilities. But she was willing to trust him. For Talia's sake, she had to. The soldier guided her to a small, sterile room where a reclining chair awaited. Ziara sat down slowly, cradling her daughter close. She felt the weight of Talia's fragile body pressing against her chest, and her heart clenched. She was scared of what would happen if this didn't work, scared of the possibility that her daughter might never be strong enough to survive. "Don't worry," the soldier reassured her, noticing the fear in her eyes. "We're going to take good care of her. You'll see." Ziara tried to smile, though it felt foreign on her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. He nodded, then left the room for a moment. When he returned, he was accompanied by a tall, silver-haired human woman who carried with her a medical device unlike anything Ziara had ever seen. It looked like a large, intricate needle, but with a number of different tubes and wires connected to it. "This is Dr. Alara," the soldier said, his voice calm and reassuring. "She's one of our top medical officers. She'll be able to help your daughter." Dr. Alara's eyes flickered with understanding as she looked at Ziara and Talia. "I've heard of your species' struggles with nourishment, but we have a way to help." Ziara nodded, feeling an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. The humans, despite all the rumors, had proven themselves different from the stories she had heard. They weren't just here to conquer or exploit. They were here to help. And right now, that was all she could ask for. Dr. Alara gestured to the chair beside Ziara. "I'm going to need to run some scans, but this process is non-invasive. I promise. We need to understand exactly what's happening before we begin. The treatment." Ziara gave a quiet nod, her exhaustion starting to catch up with her. She hadn't slept properly in days. The tension of her situation had drained every ounce of energy from her. Yet, despite the overwhelming weariness, there was a flicker of hope. As the scans began, Dr. Alara's eyes narrowed in concentration. The device beeped softly as it worked, analyzing Talia's body in ways Ziara could not comprehend. "The cause isn't a simple one," Dr. Alara murmured. "It's related to stress, biological stress, a kind of disruption to the hormonal balance. It's common in environments like yours." Ziara felt a pang of guilt. Had her emotional turmoil affected her body's ability to care for her child? She looked at Talia, the helpless little girl in her arms, and wished there was more she could have done. "We'll fix it," Dr. Alara said, her voice warm yet confident. "It's going to take a little time, but we have the technology to restore your milk production." Ziara exhaled shakily, unable to speak. She was too overwhelmed by the relief of hearing those words. It wasn't over. Her daughter wasn't lost. There was still hope. Ziara sat in the sterile room of the human ship, her hands trembling as she cradled her daughter, Talia. The soft hum of machinery filled the air, creating a strange sense of calm amidst the chaos of her thoughts. The scans had been completed, and the results were not what she had hoped for. Dr. Alara had explained that the disruption in her milk supply was linked to stress. a deep biological reaction to the trauma she had endured. But the human medical technology, advanced beyond anything her people had ever known, offered a possible solution. Ziara didn't fully understand it, but the promise of hope was enough to quiet the storm in her mind. The human soldier, still standing by the door, watched her carefully, his expression unreadable. He had been silent for a while now, his presence a comforting anchor in the sea of uncertainty. Ziara felt the weight of his gaze but didn't look up. She wasn't sure if she could. She had always prided herself on her strength, on her ability to handle any situation that came her way. But this had broken her. She had lost her husband. She had lost the support of her people, and now she was at the mercy of strangers, with nothing but the flickering hope that they could save. Her child. You're worried, the soldier finally spoke, his voice gentle but firm. Ziara nodded slightly, her throat tight. I don't understand. How can you fix this? It's my body, my planet. I don't belong here, in your world, with your people. The soldier stepped forward, his boots making no sound on the smooth floor. He knelt down in front of her, his eyes level with hers. You're not alone here. We've seen things like this before. We've helped others. I know it feels impossible, but we have the resources to help you, Ziara. She swallowed hard, the name he had used, Ziara, sounding strange on his lips. He had no idea what it meant to be her, to carry the weight of her culture, her people, and her history. But in that moment, his words offered more than just a promise of help. They offered the possibility of something she hadn't felt in a long time: trust. What do you want in return? Ziara asked, her voice barely a whisper. The fear of being used, of being seen as nothing more than a burden, clung to her every word. The soldier's face softened, and he shook his head. Nothing. We're here to help. There's no cost for compassion. Ziara's heart clenched at the sincerity in his voice. It was so different from the harsh negotiations and broken promises she had grown accustomed to. She had been taught to expect nothing but selfishness from the rest of the galaxy. The humans were not like that. At least this one wasn't. She didn't know about the rest of them, but maybe, just maybe, there was something different about this species. Why? She asked, her voice trembling with the weight of the question. Why would you help me? The soldier hesitated, as though the question was one he had never been asked before. His gaze shifted to Talia, still weak in her mother's arms. Because no one should suffer like this. You shouldn't have to face this alone. And because it's what we do. We help. We protect. Ziara looked at him, the words sinking in deeper than she expected. She had spent so much of her life relying on her own strength, her own abilities. She had never known what it was like to be helped. But here, in this moment, she realized how much she had needed it. I don't know how to repay you, Ziara said quietly, tears brimming in her eyes. The burden of everything she had lost, everything she had struggled through, seemed unbearable in that instant. You don't need to repay me, the soldier said, his voice calm and steady. You're already repaying me by trusting me, by letting me help you. Ziara shook her head, her breath catching. I don't know how to trust anymore. My people, my own people have let me down. And now, you're asking me to trust you. I don't know how to do that. I know it's hard, the soldier replied softly. But that's why we're here, to help you, to rebuild trust where it's been broken. And we're starting with Talia. We'll do whatever it takes to get her healthy again. Ziara stared down at her daughter, her small face pale and weak, her once vibrant eyes dull. Talia was so fragile, and Ziara felt like she was failing her at every turn. But now she was being offered a chance, a real chance, for Talia to survive. The fool. Soldier stood up and turned toward the door. Dr. Alara is ready to begin the treatment. It will take some time, but we'll do it right. Ziara nodded, her throat tight. Thank you. As the soldier left the room, she looked down at Talia, gently stroking the child's soft hair. The silence in the room was deafening. She didn't know what was going to happen next. The future seemed so uncertain, but for the first time in what felt like forever, Ziara could see a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone anymore. After a few moments, Dr. Alara entered the room, her expression kind but focused. She moved to Ziara's side, preparing the medical equipment for the treatment. Ziara watched her carefully, unsure of what to expect, but determined to see this through. "We're going to help your daughter, Ziara," Dr. Alara said, her voice gentle. "It's going to take some time, but we have the technology to make it work. Just trust us, and we'll get her through this." Ziara took a deep breath, nodding slowly. Trust. It was a foreign concept to her, but the words the soldier had said echoed in her mind. They were here to help her, to help Talia. And for the first time in a long time, Ziara allowed herself to believe it. As Dr. Alara began the treatment, Ziara could feel a sense of peace starting to settle over her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was clear. She had been given a second chance, and this time, she wouldn't be alone in the fight. The hours seemed to stretch endlessly as Ziara sat in the small, sterile room of the human ship, watching Dr. Alara work. The soft hum of the medical equipment filled the air, but Ziara could hardly hear it over the pounding of her own heart. She held Talia close, the weight of her daughter's frail body heavy in her arms. The child had been so weak when they arrived, and Ziara had barely been able to get a few sips of water into her. She had to believe that the treatment would work, that the humans could save her daughter. But fear, that deep, gnawing fear, still clung to her every thought. Dr. Alara was quiet, focused on preparing the medical equipment for the treatment. She worked quickly, but with careful precision. Ziara could see the concentration in the doctor's eyes, the determination that mirrored the soldiers'. The humans were serious about helping her. She could feel that in every movement they made. It gave her a sense of comfort, but there was also a part of her that feared the unknown. She had never trusted easily. Her people had been betrayed by others more times than she could count. And now, here she was, putting her trust in strangers. But Talia needed help. There was no other choice. "Are you ready, Ziara?" Dr. Alara asked, her voice soft but steady. Ziara looked down at her daughter. Talia's eyes fluttered open for a moment, a weak cry escaping her lips. Ziara's heart clenched. She had been so afraid of this moment, so afraid that she would lose her child. But now she had to believe. She had to trust. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please, help her." Dr. Alara nodded and stepped forward, the large medical device in her hands glowing softly. It was unlike anything Ziara had ever seen. A strange mixture of advanced technology and unfamiliar design. The device looked both intricate and powerful, with wires and tubes extending from it in every direction. Ziara could only imagine what it was capable of, but she had seen enough to know that the humans weren't bluffing. Their technology had already amazed her, from the healing salves they had applied to her own wounds, to the scans that had shown her daughter's condition with incredible clarity. "Don't worry," Dr. Alara said, reading the uncertainty in Ziara's eyes. "This is safe. We've tested it on many species before. It will help her." Ziara nodded, unable to speak. She felt a mix of hope and fear, and a strange sense of relief that the humans were offering her this chance. Talia's body was still so frail, and Ziara could feel the weight of her dependence. She needed this to work. Dr. Alara gently placed the device near Talia's chest, where a small panel opened, revealing a set of delicate needles. They were nothing like the sharp instruments Ziara had seen in the past. These were soft, flexible, almost like tendrils that curled and bent in ways she hadn't expected. The doctor pressed a button, and a soft light emitted from the device, casting an eerie glow over Talia's small form. The doctor's voice was soothing, a gentle rhythm that helped ease Ziara's tension. "We're going to administer a dose of biostimulants to encourage lactation. It will trigger your body's natural response, Ziara. You'll be able to feed her again." Ziara watched in silence as the procedure began. The tiny needles made contact with Talia's skin, and the baby's eyes fluttered open again, her little face wrinkling in confusion. Ziara instinctively moved closer, her protective instincts flaring up. "Don't worry, little one," she whispered softly, brushing Talia's hair from her forehead. "We're here. You're going to be okay." The procedure lasted for several minutes, though to Ziara, it felt like hours. As Dr. Alara worked, the machine made occasional soft beeping sounds, signaling progress. Ziara's mind wandered as she thought of her home, of the life she had once known. She could hardly believe how far she had fallen, how much had changed. But in that moment, as she watched Talia, she realized something that made her heart swell with hope. She wasn't alone anymore. She had found someone who cared, someone who was willing to help. Even in the midst of all the darkness, there was a light, and it was shining now, with Talia's life at the center of it. Finally, Dr. Alara stepped back, wiping a bead of sweat from her brow. "It's done," she said quietly. "Now, we wait." Ziara's breath caught as she looked at Talia, still, lying in her arms. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, to her amazement, a slight change occurred. Talia's lips parted, and a tiny sound emerged, a soft, contented noise that Ziara hadn't heard in days. The baby's tiny fingers twitched, and Ziara felt the warmth of her daughter's body against her chest. Ziara blinked, disbelief flooding her heart. Had it worked? She glanced at Dr. Alara, who nodded, her smile gentle but filled with triumph. "It's working," Dr. Alara said. "She's responding." Tears welled up in Ziara's eyes. She had never felt such overwhelming relief in her life. Her daughter was not lost. There was hope. She could feed her again. Ziara looked down at Talia, who now squirmed slightly, the signs of life returning to her tiny form. For the first time in what felt like forever, Ziara allowed herself to believe that there was still a chance for her daughter, and that the humans had given her that chance. Dr. Alara moved to the side, giving Ziara space to settle into the chair. "Let her rest for a while," she said softly. "It will take time for her body to fully adjust, but she should be stronger soon." Ziara nodded, gently rocking her daughter in her arms, her heart filled with a quiet joy. It was a small victory, but it was the most important one she could have asked for. As she sat there, lost in the moment, the soldier from earlier entered the room. His eyes immediately found Ziara, and for a brief moment, they shared a quiet look, one that spoke volumes. Without words, Ziara could see the pride in his expression. He had done this. The humans had saved her daughter. She looked at Talia once more, her heart full of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, not just to Dr. Alara or the soldier, but to the humans who had given her this chance. Ziara sat in the quiet of the human ship, the soft hum of the machinery around her a far cry from the desolate silence of her own world. The treatment had been successful, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of hope. Talia, her small, fragile daughter, lay in her arms, her body no longer as cold and limp as it had been. She had started to feed again, the tiny but significant signs of life slowly returning to her. The warmth of her daughter's body against Hers filled Ziara's heart with a sense of peace she had long thought lost. Dr. Ilara had assured her that the recovery would take time, but the initial signs were good. Talia was responding to the treatment, her little body gaining strength by the hour. Ziara could feel her own strength returning as well. The exhaustion, the fear, and the weight of the past few weeks were slowly lifting, replaced by a quiet optimism. For the first time, Ziara allowed herself to rest. The journey, the loss, and the uncertainty had worn her thin, but now, as she sat cradling her daughter, she could let go of the constant tension that had held her body tight for so long. She watched as Talia fed, her tiny hands gripping Ziara's finger with surprising strength. It was a sign, a small but powerful reminder that life was still possible even in the face of so much loss. The door to the room slid open quietly, and the human soldier, her unexpected ally, entered. His name, she had learned, was Captain Marcus Steele. Ziara had never been one to trust so easily, but there was something in his presence that made her believe. He had been kind from the moment they had met, offering help without hesitation, even when he had no reason to. "Is she doing better?" Marcus asked, his voice soft but filled with genuine concern. He stepped into the room slowly, as though not wanting to disturb the peace that had settled there. Ziara looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. She had heard so many stories of war, of violence, of betrayal. But none of those stories had prepared her for the kindness she had found in these humans. They were not the conquerors she had feared. Instead, they had shown her compassion when she had least expected it. "She's getting stronger," Ziara said, her voice thick with emotion. She lowered her head to look at her daughter, brushing a lock of hair from Talia's face. "It's a miracle." "I didn't think it was possible." Marcus smiled, but it was a small, knowing smile, as though he understood more than she could say. "It's not a miracle," he said quietly. "It's just what we do. Helping others is part of who we are. You and your daughter deserved a chance." Ziara's throat tightened, and she fought to keep the tears at bay. She had never known kindness like this before. Her world, her people, had always been shaped by survival, by the harsh realities of war and loss. But in this moment, surrounded by humans who had shown her nothing but care and respect, Ziara began to understand that there was more to life than simply surviving. She glanced at Marcus, her heart full of questions. "Why did you help me?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't understand. We've never had peace. My people, our world, has been at war for so long. I don't know how to trust anyone anymore." Marcus looked at her, his expression serious, yet understanding. He stepped closer, his gaze softening as he watched the way Ziara held her daughter. "Because we've been there. We've fought our own battles, lost our own people. We know what it's like to feel like you have nothing left. But we also know that giving up is never the answer, and no matter where we come from, we're all fighting for the same thing: the future, the chance for something better." Ziara swallowed hard, his words sinking deep into her heart. For the first time in so long, she felt a sense of connection to someone outside of her own species. There was no judgment in his voice, no condemnation, just understanding. It was a comfort she hadn't known she needed. "What now?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I can't go back to the way things were. My planet, it's gone. My people, they're scattered. I have nothing left." Marcus's expression softened even further, and he crouched down beside her, his voice steady and calm. "You're not alone, Ziara. And your daughter, Talia, she's not alone either. We'll help you. Whatever it takes." Ziara's heart felt like it might burst from the weight of her emotions. She had been running on fear and desperation for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to be cared for, to be part of something bigger than herself. But now, she could see a future. One where she and Talia had a place. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about living. "I don't know if I can repay you for this," Ziara whispered, her voice breaking. "But I promise you, I will do everything I can to help you. I will fight for your people, for the future." Marcus smiled, the warmth in his eyes undeniable. "You don't have to repay us. You've already done enough by trusting us. We're all in this together now." Ziara nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. It was a small, quiet peace, but it was enough. For the first time in a long time, she could breathe without fear. Her daughter, her world, were safe for now. As the hours passed, Ziara stayed by Talia's side, watching the baby slowly regain strength. The humans had done what no one else could, what her own people had failed to do. They had given her hope when she had none left to give. Outside, the hum of the ship continued, the world beyond still uncertain and dangerous. But for Ziara, the future no longer seemed like an insurmountable obstacle. She had a purpose again, a reason to fight. She would rebuild not just for herself, but for Talia, and maybe, just maybe, she could find a place in this new world. A world that had been so kind to her when she had nowhere else to turn. The days that followed the treatment brought a sense of calm that Ziara had not felt in years. Talia grew stronger with each passing day. Her cries were no longer weak and faint, but full of life and hunger. The soft sounds of her feeding filled the small room, a constant reminder that hope had returned to them both. Ziara, though exhausted, felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She could finally take a breath without the constant worry that her daughter would not survive. Marcus, Captain Steele, continued to check in on them daily. His presence, once a strange and unfamiliar comfort, had become a steady anchor. Ziara had come to rely on him, not only for his help, but for his unwavering support. The humans had done what no one else could, provided the medicine, the technology, and the kindness that Ziara had so desperately needed. But as the days went by, Ziara realized that the humans weren't just giving her a second chance. They were offering something much bigger, a chance at a new life. The idea of rebuilding, of starting over, was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. There was no going back to her world. The destruction was too great, and the war had taken too much. But here, among the humans, there was a chance to start anew. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about living, truly living. Ziara had always believed that strength came from fighting and enduring, but now she saw that strength came from something else: unity. The humans, despite their own struggles, had offered their strength to her. They had not only saved her daughter, but had also shown her that even in the darkest moments, there was still light. One morning, as the sun rose over the distant horizon of the alien planet, Ziara found herself standing by the window of the ship, staring out into the unknown. The sky was a deep shade of blue, the stars just beginning to fade with the coming light. She held Talia close, feeling the warmth of her daughter's tiny body against her chest. The silence in the room was comforting, but also heavy. She had so much to think about. A soft knock on the door broke her thoughts. She turned to see Marcus standing in the doorway, his expression serious but kind. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" he asked, his voice gentle. Ziara nodded and stepped aside, allowing him to enter. The door slid shut behind him, and for a moment, they stood in silence, neither sure where to begin. "I know you're still processing everything," Marcus said, his eyes meeting hers. "But we need to talk about what comes next." Ziara's brow furrowed, and she shifted Talia in, her arms. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I don't have much left. There's no going back to my world. There's nothing there for me anymore. Marcus took a deep breath, his gaze steady. I understand that. But we're part of something bigger. Now, your world might be gone, but that doesn't mean you have to face it alone. You and Talia have a place here, with us. Ziara's heart skipped a beat. She had heard the words before, the offer of help, of support. But something in Marcus's voice made them sound different this time. He wasn't just offering refuge, he was offering something more. What are you saying? She asked softly, her voice filled with uncertainty. I'm saying that you don't have to go through this alone, Marcus said, stepping closer. We're not just here to fix you. We're here to build something with you. Your strength, your courage, it's not something to be left behind. We can help each other. We're stronger together. Ziara looked down at Talia, who was now dozing peacefully in her arms. The weight of Marcus's words settled in her mind. For so long, she had fought alone, carrying the burden of survival on her shoulders. But now, she was beginning to see the truth in what he was saying. Perhaps the strength she had been seeking wasn't something to hold on to alone. Perhaps it was something that could be shared. I'm not sure if I'm ready for this, Ziara admitted quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I've lost everything. How do I trust again? Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch reassuring. It's okay to feel that way. You've been through a lot, but you're not alone anymore. We can help you rebuild. We can start fresh. Ziara swallowed hard, her throat tightening. The thought of rebuilding felt like a heavy burden, but it also felt like a glimmer of hope. She had been holding on to the past, to the destruction and loss that had defined her life for so long. But maybe it was time to let go. Maybe it was time to trust again, to build something new with the humans who had offered her and her daughter a second chance. For the first time in a long time, Ziara allowed herself to believe that there was a future. Not just for herself, but for Talia as well. I don't know where to begin, Ziara said, her voice filled with uncertainty, but also with the first hints of hope. We'll start together, Marcus replied, his voice steady. You don't have to have all the answers right now. We'll take it one step at a time. Ziara nodded slowly, her heart filled with a mixture of fear and excitement. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like she could face it. She wasn't alone. She had a place in this new world, a chance to rebuild not just her life, but her daughter's life as well. As the hours passed and the day wore on, Ziara found herself thinking about her people, about the loss and the pain that had followed her for so long. But now, there was something else, a glimmer of hope, a chance to move forward, to heal, and to find strength through unity. As she looked down at Talia, her tiny face peaceful and content, Ziara realized that she would do whatever it took to protect her daughter, to give her the future she deserved. And with the humans by her side, she would fight for that future. Together they would rebuild, not just a world, but a family. A future. The journey ahead would be long, and the challenges would be great. But for the first time in a long time, Ziara felt ready to face them. The strength of her past had been built on survival, but the strength of her future would be built on something even greater: unity.